Only show see. Bit of testing. Go. I don't know if you can remove this. Anyway, taking my time on the intro because I've noticed a lot of my videos, or a lot of the videos, have like they upload and they cut off the beginning. Not that I'm saying anything important. Anyway, welcome back. Sorry it's been so long. I know I say this every time, it's becoming a joke, but I got sick, and then I got sick again, and then I had a kidney stone. So that really sucked. But your girl Tyra is back for more videos. It's gonna be a simple one. We're gonna get back to the character action tutorial soon. I've also been getting requests for videos. And I'm gonna get to those if you're listening. Sorry, it's gonna take a bit still. People are. One specific was, recreating an effect they had in a racing game, and it's a sick effect, so I'm pretty excited to tackle it, honestly. Today, I'm just going to talk about, in one of our videos, we showed the strength of using, generic effects that you can alter at the event level and at the prefab level, their scale and things like that. And I'm going to talk about some effects I'm using in this game. The name's going to change, so I'm not going to call it Citadel Deep anymore, but for now, I guess. That have been really helpful. They add a lot. They're really easy to implement. They just... What else I like about these kinds of effects, they remind me of like samurai movies, like black and white ones, where they used... you've probably seen videos on it even. I think there's like even a famous video, I can't think of what it is. Like a YouTube video where they talk about using wind and dust and things like that to show just the power of characters or just the tension of the scene. And, I know that seems common, but back then it wasn't. But it's like anime level stuff in black and white movies, you know what I mean? And it's really cool. We're not quite approaching that, but we are going to do some cool stuff. One of the effects, we check the levels real quick. We actually did in another video. I'm going to show why it's good to just have like a collection of sort of these dust effects that you can apply to a lot of different movement. And they're super easy. And even though you see it repeatedly, it doesn't become like... It's not overwhelming. You don't get like... what's the word? Oh, shoot. Where, you hear a sound effect over and over. They have a name for it. You hear it more often with sound effects. But where you just, like, fatigue. Dang it. No, I couldn't think of that. You generally don't get that from these, as in my opinion. Even though you're reusing, like, the exact same one. And there's little tweaks you can do. And basically, it's... One of the main things is using circles. I don't know how else to put it. I've mentioned it in other videos, but by using just strong and generic shapes, it, maybe this sounds self-fulfilling, but it becomes strong, in that it'll always look good, but also because it's generic, you can use it for a lot of things. And generally that falls into, using rings and circles, orbs at times, and just straight meshes like quads and things like that. We're going to have one exception in this one, but it's an effect for something we see a lot, and that's like a quick dash. So, and I won't necessarily go through recreating all of them, but I'll go through them all. We'll go through one that I find is particularly useful. You can use it just in so many ways. And that's just like a basic sort of wind/dust effect. Sorry if my volume got weird there. I leaned over to get the controller. So, and forgive, this isn't like a really, like, I'm making a lot of changes to the game, so there's like her guns just hanging out here. But basically, as we swing our sword, you can see some dust effects coming out. and it might be a little bit hard to see, but and swing here. We'll step through. Swings there, and then you can see the beginning of it right here, and kind of expands out, and it also rotates around. And I do it in a pattern for this particular effect where it lags behind, and that's on purpose for two reasons. One is because it's not necessarily a like shock wave, it's more like she's pushing dust forward. I can't think of what the other reason was. But oh yeah, and the other is, you know, literally lags behind in timing, so that you still sort of get action. So a lot of my own methodology comes from fighting games, and you don't necessarily need this in character action games, I don't think. But it's just my style, where you really hold like your impact frames like this, and you know, we have that initial slash right there, but then we also have sort of this secondary energy of the dust wind being pushed forward, and it just adds a lot. It's really easy, and the trick to this particular one is just to make it really faint. That way it's not overwhelming the scene. Sorry for the ums. It's gonna be I don't say like as much as I used to, which is pretty good. It was like really bad, like even into my 30s. But sorry, got off track there. But yeah, just making it faint so you feel the energy, but it's not overwhelming. That's another sort of tip to these sorts of effects. So we'll go ahead and step through this one specifically. We'll get a good look at it. There it starts. Go ahead and grab it in the scene. Just call it chain dust because it was for my basic attacks. And actually, maybe we'll just the second one. Not sure what the differences are, but we'll look at them. And the other thing is just to emphasize motions. You can make these sort of, and we'll get it with another skill here, but you know, sometimes your action is going to be pulled out like this, and you know, she may be rotating or spinning or whatever, and it lets you sort of overemphasize things. And like I mentioned, like why I bring up the samurai movie thing is because it's something that seems more natural, and I feel like you can get away with it in even sort of less romanticized sort of settings. What I mean is like this is like over the top action, you know, fighting's cool, people are flying around, and there's you know physics defying things happening on the regular, and those same effects could be used in a more grounded setting. And that's why I like him so much. So go ahead and step through this one real quick. Take a look at it. Grab our animation, and pretty basic sort of thing with the scale. You know, our X and Y, which isn't normally what it would be. It'd be like X and Z, but in this case, you know, our lateral one comes out way faster. You know, we go up to 5 at this point in scale. And our Y, it's Z here, but our up and down, let's go global. There we go. Is going a little bit. That way it grows a little bit, but we want, as a general, I don't want to say general rule, but be careful about scaling things up uniformly, because it'll look like it's growing rather than expanding. Do you know what I mean? Like it looks like it's being scaled up, so it's just kind of bad. So that's the first step, and the second thing is just rotating around the UVs right here. Grab Our UVs here. It's just that X offset here. Oh, we can't see it there. We're just rotating around like that. Go ahead and look at our curve to get a better idea of what we're doing. Why? That used to reset better. Recent versions, it doesn't. I do that fast in, slow out I talk about a lot. This one isn't as harsh. We kind of want that motion to happen. If I was doing more like a slash effect, it would look more like this, where it like slashes through and then just sort of holds on. But like I said, we're trying to like generate a sort of secondary motion. And so I want that sort of swirl to happen a little bit longer. So we go through it a little bit slower. And then after that, we just have our intensity. And looks like I use a little bit. I would just ignore this one in your own things. It's just a specific thing on changing the color cutoff. And I'm not sure it's noticeable. But basically, it's sort of a blend between these two colors. If you're familiar with the shader we've been using. And it just sort of is pushing the blend point. That way the darkers just get darker. It just gets darker overall. It means like this has more influence, the dark color. The only other thing is just fading it out. I do fade it in and out. It's something I don't do too often, but I think it looks really good here. We start at 0, and we actually fade in and hold that for a little bit. We keep our curve pretty flat here. That way it sort of holds on to that intensity right here, which is the opacity. And then it just fades out. With this particular effect, we'll take a look at the texture here. It's sort of meant to go along the ground. It's sort of flat right here. Go ahead. And then, tapers up to the top. These aren't very good angles. In motion, it looks good. So that way we're just, we have this triangular shape where it's flat basically along the ground. And then it sort of comes up like this. You can see it better in the texture. For different effects, that's because these ones are kind of meant to be on the ground. So this one's more about actually like pushing dust. You may want it so, and we'll get to some other effects. Actually, I don't even know if I use a different texture on those, but some other effects that can be used otherwise. I should mention the mesh. Whoops. I was on this one. Okay. And it's just a ring. Plenty of our videos have talked about it. It's angled, it's like that. You can see here. Woo! Didn't mean to do that. Please, I beg of you. Okay. Why? It's just a ring, and we have this angled edge here. Having that 45-degree angle generally just looks good for a lot of different types of effects. It's hard to get a full-on, where you're looking down like the edge of like a quad, basically. Because if this was straight up and down, like say you look down the barrel of it, it would get really thin. But by having that, maybe this seems obvious, but by having that, you're going to have some like cut off parts, but most of it's almost always going to be visible. So I'm trying to get at here. If anybody's here, but hello if you are. I'm not used to this new layout yet. It's likely you aren't. How do I see? It's just me. Okay, cool. That's fine too. Double check that recording. Go ahead and close this off. And I think the reason I had two is because when I first implemented this, I didn't have the other direction. But with my new implementation, you can just reverse it on the X scale. Sorry, axis was in my head, and I'm like, that's not the right word. I mean, it is X scale x-axis. Anyway, to mirror it. What I'm getting at here. Now we get to the end of our chain here. You can see that we don't have it anymore. I just haven't implemented it yet. Just to show you the difference there. I mean, it's a coincidence, but I'm glad it's there because you can see it kind of lacks energy. I mean, that effect looks good, but that energy is just nice. It makes it take up more space in the scene, but it isn't too distracting. And you may not notice it, you know, like when you're playing, but the energy will be there. So let's go to our next one here. So I have a real similar one, but it's used a little differently. And this one is more for movement. So we could consider that one like sort of the after effects of like the attack itself. But I'm gonna see if I actually have the old implementation of this attack. This one is more for actual like motion of the character to emphasize like turns and things like that. So this one's really basic. Actually, I don't use this move anymore. And it looks alright animation wise. But that turn is what's BA. Yeah, I don't think I even like use a different texture. This one's a little weak. We're gonna get to some better looking ones. But let's see. You know, it just sort of emphasizes the turn. It is a different prefab, but I don't know that it is too much different. Oops. Let's see. Spin dust. Let's take a look at that one. And then I'm going to show you like on a different skill this same effect and how you can really get some cool effects with it. I have to check, yeah. So it looks like it's missing some things from the other one, so it's pretty similar. I imagine my rotation timing is a little bit different. Has more of that fast startup and then kind of hangs out more like I talked about with the slash effects where it spins quickly at first. Because again, we're kind of emphasizing that spin. And something to mention is that you can, you know, use these same effects and just change the mesh that it's on. Do I have a? Thought I had one that was more like, yeah, like this. And it'll still look dope, and you can kind of use it in different ways. You may prefer something like that. You know what I mean? It seems weird that like, you know, I went on and on about having that 45-degree angle is nice, but this flatness is nice too. And I like to mention, you know, really visually striking games who still use certain things to show that, you know, you can get away with it because Dragon Ball FighterZ does, and that game is gorgeous. So. And they use this a lot. They do more of the fade out. I actually have an effect like that. The fade out. I'm actually not going to cover it too much because I don't like how it looks in this game. I still have it on some attacks, but I might. So when I say fade out, I mean like a cutoff shader like we've talked about in other videos. So basically on this, you can see she has like this ring right here kind of following behind her slash effect. So it's sort of a similar thing. But I prefer that other fade out. This one's doing like a cutoff fade out. It's hard to tell even. That's the thing. It's like that effect needs to be redone basically. So back to the one we're talking about. You know, we have this turn right here. Kind of emphasizes that, which is cool. But if we do it a little bit differently, change the angle, we can really emphasize certain motions. Whoops, wrong move, sorry. So there, you know, she's kind of turning to the side as she spins. And that's the exact same effect, but we just tilted it a little bit. And that way you can really get that sense of like her motion. So, you know, instead of like following through, you know, the dust after the fact, it gives her some really dope motion. That's the exact same effect, you know. I show those two different ones, but they're really the same. There's some slight changes. And you could really get away with it by just increasing the speed if you didn't want to make another one, you know. But, I'm using the same texture, same mesh. And it's just something that looks really good for a lot of different effects. Motions, rather. Let's try. I'm in the middle of the animation on this one, so don't make fun of it. It's a little too crazy. I mean, I wanted more like this. So she's like flipping a bunch, right? So let's see, and I haven't tested this yet. We can just drop another one in there. And I have faith that this could look dope as hell. And vent. Next, let's find that one. It's this one. That in. First one. Frame 1, huh? That seems a little early. Is that right? Oh, they're going opposite directions. That's not what I intended, but that looks cool. So I gotta do this. Sorry again, this is specific to my own engine, so. But we've talked about it in other videos on how to implement it, so check those out. We can use that same rotation, and we could actually change that when it happens later. We're just gonna mess a little bit. That got really huge, I don't know why. There we go. So from some angles that looks pretty sweet. But basically it's just happening too soon. When's our impact? Around 31. Let's try that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a little late. But dude, that's so sick. Like, ah! And I think we could tilt it a little bit more. What I don't get, look, this is gonna be a little braggadocious, but like, I don't know why more streamers, like, creative streamers, like, pop off. Like, I don't know, maybe because I'm like a fighting game player, but like, why don't you pop off on your own art? See, look how sick that looks. Oh my god. I'm sorry, but that's just so dope. So you get the idea, though. And it's just a simple effect. You know, we've done this. It's essentially the same effect for all the examples I've given already so far today, or that we've covered today. And that's dope. We can further alter it. This is just a good tip in general. We can make it smaller, the second one. It gives you it's just another way to like it's fading out almost, or we could do the opposite, like the tension is like building up. I think I like it the best with the same size, but they're they have their own appeal. Anyway, I don't know why more creative streamers like ready to get playable version of this. Not yet. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. It's been a goal for a long time. You should get a playable build out right away. This has been a tumultuous development. I am working on it, and I generally make them pretty public. If you don't follow me on Twitter @CultureAttack, go ahead and do that. If you want to, if there's a specific reason, like an implementation or something, and you haven't checked out all the videos on my YouTube, please do that. A lot of what we do in this game, we've covered in some videos. And if there's just something specific you want to learn, or just know how I did, or whatever, just contact me, and I am more than willing. As a general rule, full source code and full assets for my games aren't available until release, but I'm pretty open, like as a complete package, you know what I mean? Basically, if you ask for a certain bit of code, then I'll give it. I just don't feel that comfortable until the game's actually out. But one of our deals here at Culture Attack is open and readily available information, free sharing of everything. But unfortunately, we live under capitalism, and another thing is just to make sure everything's stable when you present something like in a complete package. Anyway, it was a long-winded way of saying it. But let me know if there's something that you'd like to that you're interested in. We'll get in contact, and I'll try and help you out. Sorry, but this just looks so dope. So let's go to the next one. That one's more for motion. I'm trying to think of like some other attacks that have it. I think that's it that I can think of. Look at my notes here. So yeah, this is our dash one. This is one that is less generic. Let's see. I use Unreal Engine for like the look and feel of your game. Thank you. Like an old PS2 game. Wasn't my intent, but clearly it is. And also like your sound effects. I like to use them too for effects. Maybe you meant visual effects. I'm not sure. Yeah. Just checking my channel. Like that was sort of like that's a lot of the content. It was just the visual effects. We're in the middle of a character action game tutorial, like more about programming mechanics and things. But a lot of what I have on my channel is visual effects. So anything you see here, pretty much all of these we have covered in a video. So, but anyway, let's dash effect. Let's actually I have some little extra on that particular dash. So we'll look at. Whoops, wrong move. This one here. Go ahead and step through. This one I was like mad about when I was first making it because I was really struggling. In Aces Wild, I have a dash effect that's used everywhere, and I love how it looks. And so I finally got this one sort of working. It seemed a little cheesy, but like I just left it there because I was tired of working on it, and then I just learned to love it. And I've talked about that in other videos. We may have even done this in a video. I can't remember. But it's a little bit different. It uses. Go ahead and crack this open in Blender. I'm not like a huge fan of Penny Arcade anymore, but there's an old Penny Arcade that was really funny, and it's like competitive Photoshop, and he's like making fun of his square or his cube or whatever, and he calls it a rhombus, and it's really funny. It was just I don't know, that was a funny joke. Anyway, here's the mesh. It's rounded. It's sort of like this half cylinder. It expands a bit. It's not too interesting. I'd also like to mention that the assets are made available too. Whenever we cover a specific topic, we do make those available. You can check out the link in almost any video, and they usually have the download there. And if there's just one that you want sent to you, I'll send it to you. Send it to you. So this is the foundation. This is for each little like plume of dust. And then I just have a bunch of them. I just sort of arranged them into a nice shape. There's actually a lot of them. This one's a little less elegant, which is, I have this sort of unhealthy sort of fetish with elegance. I really do think it's unhealthy. I think if this looks good, if you just smash a bunch of effects together and your performance is fine, then that's how you should do it. So I basically just organized them in a way that made it feel thicker. I have some, and I can scale them out up here so they're bigger. And I just use that for any sort of like quick dash effects or skills. Sorry, one sec here. So winter times, it's really dry here. VFX, not sound effects. Yeah, I imagine that's what you meant. And thank you. It's a nice compliment. But yeah, a lot of what we've done, or that you may see here, we've done in a video. And if you need help, just contact me. I love helping people. Help a lot of people. I'm busy working on the game, but helping people and teaching is one of my passions too. So we'll go ahead and just step through one real quick. Do actually animate the position a little bit. It just sort of slides back a bit. It doing to me. So alpha cutoff, again, that was not too important. Neither is alpha influence. The main thing is just the intensity, which is like the opacity and the this right here. I mean, the cutoff does help in this one. I'll show you what I mean. I feel like we did this in a video. I just can't remember. We have a lot now. Basically, we start squat like this. Hard to see. Let's grab this one instead, please. I beg of you. Sorry, my shader doesn't like it when you grab from one side. So we start here. So we just start squat low to the ground. And we very quickly pop up. Go boop, like that. And then we very slowly extend even more. It doesn't quite match. That's what's hard about using the scaling ones, is because, you know, we think of this more linearly, but if you watch as we go, I mean, it's, don't think of it as one-to-one, I should say, because obviously this isn't linear. This is, you know, it's like an L shape, very steep and then shallow. But we can see here, even though it's really shallow, we're still getting a lot of motion. And so that's just, you're just going to have to do it so it feels right. I am going to crack this open real quick to show you how I use the alpha cutoff. Down here, I have a lot of opacity. So it's hard to see, but I actually, you know, laid out a, thought I had it on here still. But basically, this might seem obvious, but, you know, I hit it, one of these, went like that, went to the layer, pressed delete that way to just fade it out, you know what I mean? And so that way, I take it back. I do use the alpha cutoff in an important way. You know, we sort of get that extra motion where it's like peeling up off the ground. But really, you could just, honestly, if you had no motion and just had the fade out, it would still look pretty good. Where you just have like a bunch of spikes that just sort of appear and sort of fade out. I mean, you would still want like a little bit of motion or something if it's sort of going in the direction it wants, or like is implied. But you know, I use that for a lot of different things. What other effects did I have? Can't think of it. But anyway, that's that one. It's not as universal, but it just looks so nice, and you're gonna have a lot of, you know, sort of dashing effects or skills in your game, then that can be helpful. And again, you can always just scale it up to match like a bigger, you know, individual using the skill. You can scale it down if it's not for like a dramatic effect. There's lots of ways you can handle it. One moment, sorry, getting real dry. I haven't spoke like this. Well, I guess I do it at work a lot, but it's catching up with me already. Sorry, one sec. I was worried the mute wasn't working. Hopefully that all got captured rather. So, look at my notes here. Oh yeah, so this one we have done a specific video on, but I just want to show it sort of in different contexts. To show, you know, that's sort of the theme of this video, is to have effects that are pretty identical, but you can use them in different ways to have different results. So we have this big swing with our greatsword, and oh yeah, see, okay, actually use it for that. I'm actually gonna do something else. Well, well, I'll just stick to this for, well, okay, we'll do it on this one. So I have this big swing here, and as you can see, even though she's not rushing forward, I use it as a way to create sort of like energy, you know what I mean? It's like, because this is like a big move, so it's like, we have all that fly out of her, like that dust, creates drama, and just makes the effect look really impactful. Actually, Get rid of that effect. This is an old effect on this move. Don't use it anymore. So similarly, on this skill, I actually had that before. Did I delete it? That's too bad. So I had that dust effect on this skill too. So similar to this, you know, they're big wind-up attacks, but it hit her too much. And so instead, you know, I went to this. That's what else I wanted to show. This is essentially that same as the first one, that same effect as the first one. Sorry, I know I'm getting off topic, but the difference is, and I have a separate prefab. You could get away with it depending on how you implement it. But basically, along the X UV, we double it. So you can see the tiling here is ×2. And it's basically the same speed, but when you have it doubled up like that, it makes it really fast, right? And so we get that with it. And that's pretty dope. And so we'll go back to that first one. What I'm talking about, or I meant to start with, is this right here. So this dust along the ground, do that a little bit better. Step through, and we did like a straight up video on this effect, so you can go check that out. Right here's where it starts, and we're using like a ring, and it's really basic. It's like we just do a bunch of tiling. You know, it's tiled ×5 along the X, and then we just sort of push it out like that, and it looks sweet. So, you know, we can use it for like impacts along the ground, right? Like she's powering up, slams it into the ground, we have this dust that comes out, and that looks sick. But we can also do it like this, similar to that dash effect, where we use that to like sort of give an initial sort of pop of like energy and like drama. You can do it for other things. So if we have like this move, you know, we do it and it creates this like moment of tension, right? And that's why having sort of a collection of different shapes, you know, we have this sort of dash shape, it matches this better. And this one, she's kind of bundled up, you know, she bends over, she reaches back into the Ido stance, and it just creates this cool moment of tension and motion before doing the attack. It just looks sick. And if you may have noticed that I actually have that doubled up effect on here too, to give it a little bit of thickness. So that's actually swirling around a bit too. Have this one here. Oh, wrong one. Sorry, I forgot I changed it. Boop, boop, boop. Go ahead and do that. You can see I have this initial turn, and she does a full rotation, and so that's why I use the doubled up one. It matches a little bit better. So if you have like a slow turn like I did with that first example, I feel like it matches a little bit better, but this one's like this real quick, tight spin, and so I think the doubled up one looks better. She spins through and then swings out. And I will mention that I basically have two of a lot of these effects. One, you can get away with it by just scaling it up, but there's one that doesn't expand too much, and then there's one that expands a lot. You know, for basically all of these effects. So that's what I got there. And I don't know, it just felt right for that move. Even though it's like a upward motion, you might want to use something else. Just that explosion outwards looks really dope. Like she does spin a lot during it. It looks awesome. Let's see, more questions still. One more, and that's just this one here I recently implemented. Just wanted to mention it. there's lots of skills that sort of like struck the ground. And I wanted to show it because it looks BA, right? So it's this effect right here. I actually have a light on it too, which makes it look super sick. Go ahead. Show the texture on that one. It's really stretched out. So it's just this. These sort of, I don't know what you call it, but basically you cut into it with circles. So instead of like a straight zigzag like this, it's more this shape, you know. It works real well for this. We just step through. That only had the one on here. Do I really have two? That doesn't seem right. The motion's a little bit weird. You know, it starts here and goes up real quick and then comes right back down and then sort of fades out up and down wise. So it's kind of squishing if you can't tell. So that's the motion. It's a little weird and you could do better, but I feel like it helps a lot. You can kind of see the bug there. There's the fog is kind of drawing over it in the background. It's weird. I like this one a lot because with this shape, you can make it work with a lot of different attacks. So I have it with the one we just used here. You know, she sort of lifts up like that. And I make it really tall. You know, we just scale it up a bunch. I also use it on this one. It flips up like that. And I make it way less thick. It is tall. But I did it in a way bad way, sorry. Let's face this way. It is tall because she's jumping up in the air. I wanted to emphasize that. But front to back, it's way thinner. So it's, you know, on these other skills, I scaled it way along like this, but we're just keeping it up front here. And it just matches way better that way. And then we have that big old hit, and it's the opposite. Where I don't make it go up as much. Still pretty big, but I scale it this way like a lot. It's just really helpful for any impact that's like hitting the ground. You know, these attacks are way different, but I'm using the exact same effect. I'm just scaling it different to sort of match the motion. I have it on this one too. Actually, I think this is the first version, the first skill that had it. You know, I do that same thing, use that effect there. Swings down. This is my generic slash effect, but I scale it differently. Give it more character. There's that impact effect there. And then I have like a follow-through dust effect, just like on that other skill, just to give it more impact. There's, you know, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to wrap up. If you have any questions, let me know. There's lots of sort of effects you could do. One effect I would like that I haven't done yet is for these sort of dashing motions, something that follows along the character a little bit. You could do literal anime lines like following behind them, or maybe just some dust trails or something. I haven't come up with one that matches this aesthetic yet, but I'm not too worried. You know, certain skills that we've already covered kind of do that already. Like this one, you know, it feels like it's following along behind her, and it looks really cool. Yeah, so just using some basic effects. You can use them a lot of ways. When you do an effect, that's so simple. You're like, oh, that was so easy. I could just do that for every skill, like make a new one. Don't fall into that trap. That's something I used to do, even on this game. It's bad. Every way you can make life easier for yourself, do it. Another reason is that, like, let's say we update this texture, make it look nicer, update that animation, make it look nicer. We just, like, improved everything. I used to do it for the slash effects. It was ridiculous. Like, I can't even believe I did that. Like, I literally did it, like, for each one. I even redid the texture, because they are pretty fast to make. But it's absurd that I did that. Like, it's crazy. There's so many moves in this game. Like, I can't even believe that I, like, did that. If we just have this one, and you know, we have a few. That's actually a different one. I guess I could mention this. This is sort of a little supplementary effect. On that slash, God, it looks so sick. I have this sort of straight effect coming down too. And I just put that on some skills that are a little stronger. This slash effect is a little bit different too. The timing's a little bit different and it's thicker. You know, it's for like heavier attacks. Then we have this like straight effect coming in too, to give it more punch. The timing's off because this is, like I mentioned, I'm in the middle of making this move and I just copied it over from a similar move and I haven't updated the timings. Anyway, the lesson is use these generic effects, please. You can scale them in different ways to work with different motions. I can imagine one that's sort of just like a cylinder, like an angled cylinder that just pops sort of straight up, similar to the dust effect, but is in a full circle. You could use that for a lot of like different jumps and things. I actually have a little one that I use for some jump effects. I guess I'll show that real quick. But this new one here ended up looking better, so I use that one now. But I still have this old one here. It's basically the same animation, but it's smaller. And it's a little bit crisper. It just has a different feel. It's a less chaotic. I have some particles down in here too. Separate issue. Or separate topic, I guess. So anyway, use them. Generic effects are awesome. You know, there's like those reasons I mentioned. It's just easier to pop it in there. You know, when I was just first messing around, like with this one, I didn't even think, like, you know, I just did it like the normal turn motion like I had done for that old one I showed. And I just put it at an angle, and I'm like, holy cow, it looks way different. Then on this one, we double it up. Feels like a whole new effect. I'm sorry, just really losing my voice. But it's a good way to end it. If you have any questions, let me know. Sorry I was gone so long. Doing my best. Keep these videos coming. Doing my best to hit up those topics y'all asked about. Sorry, I wanted to have a cool shot. That's 3 generic effects right there. And they can look way different on other skills. So yeah, trying to hit those topics y'all have been asking about. Please contact me at Culture Attack on Twitter. I love to help. When I help other people, I also get stronger, which is nice. Again, these assets will be made available through a link in the download, a download link in the YouTube video. This will always go to YouTube. That's mainly, you know, I stream it, but this is just so I can put it up on YouTube. It's easier for me. Yeah. Hit up patreon.com/culture attack. Still working on backer rewards that I basically want to make it so I only have like a $1 and $5 one. I think that, you know, backing Culture Attack is if you have the extra cash and want to support the games I make and the videos I make. I don't want it to be about buying a backer reward. So I'm trying to find something that feels more like a reward. Because the idea is to be a patron to these games and these videos. And you can't afford it. I want this content to be available. Again, one of our big ideals here is free and open information, techniques. A lot of this stuff is hard to find. There may be way better ways to do these things, so let me know there too. That should do it. Trying to think, any questions? Nope. Sorry for all the ums. Sorry for the late videos, or the gap in videos there. But the support continues to be amazing, honestly. Development on the game's going good. Like I mentioned, doing a big overhaul, scaling back on what it was going to be. Sorry, I just had a thought about like a cool like dust effect that sort of mirrors this. Like not mirrors, but sort of has a similar motion. Look really sick, and you can use it in a lot of different ways. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful. I'm really rambling. It wouldn't be a culture attack video if I didn't. I love you all so much. Catch you next time.